The Shift is brought to you by SE Healthcare. Welcome to The Shift. I'm Dr. Andrea Coyle. Welcome back to another episode of The Shift. I am so excited with today's guest. She has so much energy. We've been communicating back and forth via email, had a couple virtual discussions, and I'm positive that she is going to create some energy and inspire you and talk about her shift. And I'm going to let Dr. Bennett Schiano introduce herself, tee it up, talk a little bit about her career, what she's done, and then we're just going to go back and forth shifty style like we always do in these podcasts, and it's going to be fun. So I'm going to throw it over to you, Dr. Bennett Schiano. Tell us a little bit about you so the shifties can hear about you. And by the way, my first question is, how do you feel about being called a shifty? Are you ready to really embrace that?
I am so honored to be a shifty. In fact, I think we need to make friendship bracelets. I think that's next on the list.
Okay, you're going to make the friendship bracelets. We can sell them in the Shift store because we are going to have a Shift store. We're going to sell shifty merch. We're going to have hats. We're going to have t-shirts. We're going to have friendship bracelets from you, and it's just going to be fun.
I'm so excited. No, thank you so much for having me. As you had shared, my name is Bennett Schiano, and I am a healthcare leader. I currently work at UNC Health in a clinical system quality and strategy role. And I also, on the side, have the pleasure to be an appointed board member through AONL and teach as an adjunct faculty member at St. Mary's College in Indiana. So I'm so excited to be here and be in a space where you think so innovatively and share a little bit more about my shift.
I love it. Just shifties out there. Before Crystal and I started talking, we talked about really what the genesis of the Shift podcast is. And some of you have heard this, and I've said it in a couple other episodes, but it really came from during the pandemic. I was a professional excellence and magnet program director, and I was furloughed, and I'd never been furloughed. I'd never not worked in my life. And so I was feeling a little anxious, and I was a little uncertain, like everyone was at the time, at the very beginning of the pandemic. And I had this incredible opportunity to be an assistant director in a New York City suburb hospital. The assignment was supposed to be 6 weeks. It turned into 6 months. And my frustration and fear and anxiety shifted to gratitude. And I really wanted to help make an impact and share my gratitude and positive emotions. And I wanted to talk about that in the shift. And so the shift is about shifting your mindset, shifting your direction, shifting your tendency. And so I want to hear from you, Crystal, and I'm sure the shifties are interested to hear. You shared a little bit of your burnout story and what that looked like. So if you can share that story, I think it would be really powerful for everyone to hear.
Yeah, definitely. No, thank you so much for sharing that, Andrea. Like you said, I think that everybody has a point in their career or several where you're feeling a level of burnout. And sometimes that's matched with an interest in wanting to do something different. For me, I was so grateful to work as a nurse manager with a really, really encouraging and supportive team and leadership throughout the pandemic. But I do have to say, after 3 years of, working as a new leader, I very quickly went from an assistant nurse manager to a nurse manager to a COVID nurse manager as one of my first leadership roles. And after 3 years within those transitions, I was exhausted. And not only that, but I was just really interested in understanding what else was out there in healthcare. And I knew that there was so much more that I could be exposed to and so many other areas in which I could make an impact. So when my husband and I had an opportunity to move from Connecticut to North Carolina, I started exploring some system roles. And this kind of served two purposes for me. One, I'm really interested in healthcare strategy and looking at the big picture, and that kind of work really excites me. But also, I needed a little bit of distance from the bedside. After 3 years of, working hand in hand with nurses and patients and their families who were struggling with COVID and back and forth between that population and our surgical patient population, I wanted to refuel my energy and make a difference in healthcare, while also taking some time to focus on myself and my relationships and healing from the pandemic, which so many of us needed to do, while also looking at some areas where I could really make an impact and truly choosing to move into this system role. While it was so different than anything I could have anticipated at the start of my career, was one of the best decisions I think I've ever made. And it's offered me professional growth in areas that I, wouldn't have necessarily directly received those skill sets had I stayed in similar roles.
I love your story, Crystal. You talk a lot about shifting and frequent shifting, especially during, basically you went from assistant nurse manager, quickly shifted into manager. And as we all know, the nurse manager role in the hospital is 100% the most difficult, I believe, role in the house. It is, you have to straddle leadership skills, you have to straddle sometimes being in staffing, sometimes you have to deliver very difficult, courageous messages to the team. So I think it's really challenging. The one thing I think that we didn't talk about is your role with AONL. And I think that's pretty cool. So talk about that. And when I think of AONL, I obviously think of the incredible Dr. Deb Zimmerman, who really actually connected us, which is fun. And Deb Zimmerman is the master shiftee. We talked about that. So tell us about your role with AONL and how that role has been an opportunity and how it's helped you grow professionally.
Yeah. So many thoughts and feelings come to mind as you say that, because it's been such a fun and interesting journey. I first joined AONL, the American Organization for Nursing Leadership, when I started as an assistant nurse manager. And I wasn't sure, they were AONE at the time. And I wasn't sure where I stood in terms of their membership. And it was very soon after that they purposefully converted to AONL nursing for nursing leadership. And that was an intentional change that I've seen not only in the name, but also in the entire way that they're looking to do things and become more inclusive. And my participation in AONL's board as an appointed board member is a direct correlation to that. I'm really, really grateful to serve as an appointed board member to represent early careerists and maybe some shifties out there as well. And it has been truly an incredible opportunity. I started my appointment in January of this year. And I do have to say, when Deb Zimmerman called me, who's one of my favorite people, and it's interesting that you use the word connector, because during her celebration at the conference, at the AONL conference in April, so many people referred to her as a connector. She's an incredible, community builder. And so she's so great at this role that she's found herself in. And it was during that conference and interacting more with not only the board members, but also so much more of the membership, that I realized that we are all really craving to interact with people who think differently and who want to do things differently. And it was through those conversations that I really had some healing myself, in terms of remembering that it's not only okay, but it's good to want to do something different and to contribute my skills in a different way. So I'm so grateful to the board appointment and for the opportunity, as well as just the community of AONL, because you would think even by the name of nursing leadership that, they would so strongly encourage just that traditional nursing leadership path, but that's not true at all. I've felt so supported through Deb Zimmerman and so many other board members to pursue paths unique to me. And they have been the first people to help make those connections and facilitate conversations that help me understand where my career might grow.
The Shift is brought to you by SE Healthcare. Is burnout costing your organization its best nurses? How do you know? SE Healthcare can help. Our evidence-based approach helps nurse leaders boost retention, enhance job satisfaction, and bring joy back into our great profession. In addition, it helps elevate quality patient care, because when the people taking care of the people are at their best, patients get the care they deserve. We can reduce burnout by an impressive 50%. Are you ready to uncover burnout's impact on your team? Visit sehealthcaresolutions.com this shift for your free assessment today. I love it. And let's talk about being a connector. How important is it in nursing to be a connector? We have, while it sounds vast that we have this global nursing community, it's still a really small community. And the longer you're in it, it just gets smaller and smaller, yet bigger and bigger. So it's really fascinating. The way I got my my role during the pandemic was through a connector. One of my faculty members' sons in my neighborhood said, "Hey, Dr. Coyle, what are you up to?" And I said, "I got furloughed today." And he said, "Oh my gosh, I just took this assignment in New York City suburb." And he connected me. So connecting people, I think, is one really important message that I want to share with shifties. Try your hardest to be a connector. Be that person that's able to celebrate other people's successes and then share that. Do the right thing even when people aren't looking.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that takes a lot of confidence too, right? Because especially when people are looking to do something unique, when they're looking to make a shift, whether it's like you have said, in their way of thinking, in their career, a lot of times, I don't know about anyone else out there, but if you're anything like me, I felt a low sense of self-esteem during those times where I'm like, I am figuring this out. I want to do something different, but I don't know how to articulate what exactly it is. And because I couldn't communicate clearly what I wanted to do, I was afraid to build my community and rely on those connectors in my world to better understand what my career options looked like. And so I think that requires a great amount of courage. And I'm so grateful to the people in my community who have had, their arms wide open about having these conversations. So I can't stress enough, to your point, the value of those people in our lives to just have the conversations, talk it out, remind us that we're not crazy, that there are other people that think like us, that want to do things in a unique way. And, people like Deb and so many of my other mentors have been just really impactful in helping me to better articulate what I'm looking for and how I want to move forward.
I love it. And I have to tell you, Deb Zimmerman really sang your praises, and I'm so glad she did, because you're here and now we've made a nice connection and it's been really some meaningful moments. Typically we end the show and we give people some nuggets to walk away with to keep them inspired. I like to talk about keeping people inspired. And so let's give everybody on the podcast some takeaways. And then what I want to ask you, Crystal, will you please come back to the show 6 months, 3 months. We want to hear from you. We want to learn from you. We want to hear all the great work you're doing with AONL. So will you commit to coming back?
Absolutely. I'd love
and when
to.
you come back, where you wear a shifty hat and a friendship bracelet, we got to rock the merchandise, right?
I love it.
It'll be so fun. Let's have you kick it off. Let's give a couple words of wisdom to everyone that's listening. You go first.
Yeah. All right. I'll start with, we touched on this briefly, but I think when we're unsure about ourselves or what we want to do next, or we think that we're thinking something that's novel, I would really urge you to be confident in the space that you're in. Have conversations with like-minded as well as different-minded individuals. I've learned so much from people outside of the healthcare industry, and it's really broadened my eyes to what I can pursue and how I can make a difference. So that's my first thing, is really to be confident. I would say another big takeaway for me is doing what comes naturally to you is not the same as taking the easy way out. And that's been a real life lesson for me because I don't know if any of you are like me. I'm a big type A, big sister type. And I think when I found that big picture work so natural and I pursued it and that shift that I was discussing earlier, I felt a great amount of guilt, not only for leaving the more direct bedside role, but because I felt if I was doing something that was natural to me, that I wasn't making a difference. And in fact, that was so wrong and a totally incorrect way of thinking about things. In fact, I really feel that by leveraging those skills and things that came naturally to me, I'm able to make a better impact on healthcare in the community I work in. So if any of you have that kind of urge where it comes naturally, it must not be, the area I'm supposed to be in. It's actually probably the opposite. And then the last thing I would say is, just like we've been saying throughout the, course of our chat here, is rely on your community and look for ways to build your community. Most recently, I've had an opportunity to work through my alma mater, Johns Hopkins, to do some sessions in professional coaching. And man, that is like therapy for a careerist. It has been an incredible opportunity to take control over my emotions, my perceptions of people's thoughts. And in a time where I'm trying to make some shifts in my life, it has given me a great level of confidence and reflection that I certainly would not have had without that intentional, resource. So I'm very grateful to my coach at Johns Hopkins, and certainly encourage anyone pursuing that as well.
Wow, that's so much knowledge. You just kicked a lot of knowledge. Wow, that's amazing.
Thank
Typically,
you.
I throw in a couple things. I'm going to throw in a few things, and I really, everything you said resonates with me. A couple things I picked up on during our conversation, mentors. If I could stress how important it is to actually seek out a mentor intentionally, and I'm going to use
Yeah.
your word, intentionally seek out a mentor and seek out that mentor who is able to challenge you. Seek out that mentor who is able to have a really courageous conversation, because I've had a lot of mentors, but one mentor really said to me, Andrea, how do you like to receive feedback? And I said, I like to receive back feedback in the moment, face to face. And she said, good, because now you're giving me permission. I'm going to really provide you with some courageous conversation.
Yeah.
And she told me a few things about myself that were a little hard to digest at first. But after I reflected, and again, I'm using some of your words, after I reflected, and I remember exactly where it was when Dr. Marilyn Schaffner, my old chief nursing officer, um, she had so much courage, but she couched it in a way that it was so helpful and it was so profound, because she wanted me to be successful. And
Yeah.
I want to be that for other people. And I think when we talk about the community of nursing, that's what we need to be for each other. We need to be able to have these discussions, be courageous, and couch it as
Mhm.
a gift to people.
Yeah. That's the word I was thinking of the whole time as you were speaking, is that mentorship and that feedback is truly a gift. And I think if we think of valuing these relationships professionally, similar to we do our personal relationships, that's when we can really find a lot of fulfillment in the work that we do. And I'm equally grateful to, my own mentors like Dr. Chika Inuagu, who have not only taken the time to invest in us, right? But also thought so, so intentionally about how to do it in a way that would help us grow as individuals, asking, how do you like to receive feedback? That's something that, would stick with you for the rest of your career in a way that would change how you would ultimately mentor others. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I really relate to and appreciate that.
You bet. So I am thrilled to have you here. I think you gave us a lot of things to think about. And I heard you say you're going to come back. So I'm sure the shifties are going to be thrilled for you to come back. And what I say at the end of every episode, shifties, always remember your shift makes the difference. Enjoying the shift? Help us reach more nurse leaders by rating and reviewing us on your podcast app. It takes just a minute, but makes a big impact. Search for The Shift, tap those stars, and share what you love. Your feedback shapes our future episodes and helps others discover us. Remember, rate, review, and amplify The Shift today.